Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be having a look at the pattern over the next several days here. There'll be multiple clipper systems moving through parts of the northern plains, Great Lakes to the northeast. We're also going to be talking a little bit about a nuisance winter weather event for parts of New England states as well. And there's also has been some chatter for potential for a big system on Super Bowl weekend as well. We're also going to have an update on late February, where we could potentially see a pattern change in that time period as well. Before we get started with this video, if you guys do like weather-related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel here. Plus, we'll probably have more updates on this topic here, or on these topics, I should rather say, as well. So let's get started with the watch warning advisory display, and you can see here it's mostly quiet. Wind problems for parts of Dakotas and Montana, some high wind issues up there. But really the biggest event we got going on is what's going up in the New England states, where we do have winter weather advisories up there as well. We'll check out the HER model for that. And you'll notice here, it's going to be a weak system overall, but it has been trending a little bit west with time, which is getting a little bit closer and a little bit deeper to that colder air. The system's not going to have a whole lot of cold air to work with. That should be noted um, as well. This will be going through the night tonight, and that kind of go through the day tomorrow as well, which you do see these multiple rounds, some snow showers, and even some moderate snow as well. For some areas, you may transition over to rain as well. And like I said before, there's not going to be a lot of cold air to work with this, so there is going to be some rain for some areas out there as well. And eventually that system should get out of here by tomorrow evening as well. And then again, it's going to be a little bit of a nuisance event here. And there is going to be a decent amount of snow for parts of New Hampshire and Maine. And in those lower elevations, we could see a few inches of snow. And in those higher elevations, we could see probably more than a few inches. As you can see here with the snowfall forecast from the HER model, really, most of your bigger cities will be missing out on this event. But you do notice here, you do see this big area here of heavier snow on this map here. And so then again, lower elevations, probably anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of snow. But when you get into those higher elevations, that's where you can likely see 6 to maybe close to a foot of snow in some places. But then again, really, some of your highest totals are going to be in the higher elevations. And also, it's just going to be a kind of a nuisance event for parts of the New England states as well. There could be a little bit of ice to work with and a little bit of sleet as well. What you do see here from the HER model, there is some freeze and rain accumulations even down for parts of Massachusetts. It could be anywhere from a glaze to maybe a tenth of an inch of ice out there as well. And there might be some areas that get close to a quarter, but it's not. This is not going to be a an ice storm by any means, which we could probably move our view a little bit south here for those ice accumulations. You do see here these amounts are going to be overdone, but you do see here for places like Hartford, Connecticut, it's showing almost 4/10 of an inch. Worcester, uh, Massachusetts, 4/10 of an inch. Springfield, Massachusetts, almost 2/10 of an inch. And then again, these amounts are going to be a little bit overdone. Maybe take it off, maybe about 2/10 of an inch in those higher amounts, and that's probably what you could see. So probably anywhere from a glaze to 2/10 of an inch of ice, probably at best out there as well. And this will be enough to cause some dangerous travel as well. So if you're going to be on the road, certainly have to be careful with that as well. So there's that system out of the way. Let's kind of check out a little bit more in the medium range. And you will notice here over the next couple of days here, you get these Alberta clipper systems to move across southern Canada. That's going to bring in a mix of rain and snow showers for some areas up north. It can also have quite a bit of wind as well, depending on how strong that low is going to be. And it does bring in a decent amount of cold air. And you do notice at around this time frame, getting to Super Bowl weekend, GFS is showing a storm system moving across the Gulf Coast states, and it does interact a little bit of this colder air. Now, there's still a lot of uncertainty of how this is going to go. Now, GFS does have the progression bias with this, but the potential could be there that we could see a stronger storm system out of this as well. We'll look into a little bit more detail in just a moment. Here's the Canadian one. We actually saw some freezing rain in parts of western North Carolina as well earlier today. That should end. It probably should end already. So then again, that system is going to be moving out. And we got this Clipper system moving across the Great Lakes region. Here comes a second Clipper system. And really all of these here are going to bring rain and snow showers for some areas. And snow accumulations are expected to be minor. You also notice here, very similar setup here, but you also do notice at the same time, not much happens with the Canadian model. It doesn't show a whole lot of anything. It does try to develop another system later on down the road, but the GFS doesn't necessarily show that potential factor other than the northern piece of energy starts to ramp up as well. So definitely different than what the GFS is suggesting. Let's check out the European model for a preference, and pretty similar here, pretty strong with that uh, Alberta Clipper system. If it is going to be a strong low, that's going to create quite a bit of wind for up north as well, especially across the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, even up in the parts of Northeast could see a decent amount of wind out of it as well. And that system is going to bring in quite a bit of cold air as well. You also notice it does develop a storm system, but it's pretty far to the southeast. So you got different scenarios here. And honestly, I think the model's going to have the best handle with this is probably going to be the Kinney model. It all depends on the timing of these two pieces of energy. You're going to have one that's going to be for up north, and then you got one that's going to go through parts of the Gulf Coast states. If the southern piece of energy does trend slower, that has a better shot of these coming together to a bigger storm system. It all really depends on the timing of these pieces of energy. So either you're going to get a big system that could bring in a winter storm, or maybe not much of anything. So that's kind of where we're at for right now. And there's not a good agreement for a big storm system at this point. The European model has shown a bigger system in previous runs, but like you see in the latest run, it doesn't really show it. So it's been a big jumper. And I do think the Canadian model does have a little better handle on this, just because it handles the cold air a little bit better in this range, and it doesn't necessarily have a progression bias like the GFS has. So, and for the Canadian model, the sever piece of energy is a little bit too fast for these here to combine into a big storm for the Northeast. So it's still something to keep an eye on for right now, but we'll let you guys know if there's going to be any changes on the forecast with this as well. But the probability for a big system on this system is low. But don't get me wrong, the potential is there. We could see a big system. But for right now, the chances of it is low at this time here. We'll have to wait and see what the model suggests over the next several days with this system, or technically these two systems as well. Okay, let's talk about the long range. So really, for the rest of this week here, it's going to be a colder pattern, and it kind of leans into early next week as well. But when we get into late February, we start to notice a pattern change. Let's check out the Gfs Ensembles for that. So currently, we're in a pattern where we have this ridge here in the western U.S. That's a positive PNA. And that leads to ridging out there. At around this time here, it's got right around a neutral NAO, but really it's been a positive NAO. And then the AO has been positive as well. And these here do change up the pattern as well. With a positive or around neutral NAO, well, let's just kind of go with a positive NAO in this scenario. With a positive NAO, it keeps the colder air a little bit further north. You don't get Greenland blocking with a positive NAO. That's a similar situation with a positive AO, which is your Arctic oscillation. It keeps the cold air further north, or in other words, the polar vortex is a little bit stronger. And when that happens, it keeps that cold air a little bit further north. Or your polar vortex is not as wavy because parts of the polar vortex do come a little bit further south into parts of the lower 48 region. And things are trending a little bit strong with the positive AO as well, and that can change the forecast as well of how systems kind of evolve as well. But as we continue to play this, you notice that the NAO becomes stronger, the positive NAO. And you also notice at the same time, look at this ridge out in the western U.S. It's starting to move out further back to the west as well. And what happens in this scenario is that this cold air begins to shift further west as well. And it gives an opportunity for a ridge to develop in the southeast, which you'll see this as we get deeper into late February into early March. Which, of course, this is getting far out. Some changes are possible here, but there is a decent support with this as well. Plus, it's been showing this for a while now, and it should definitely be taken into notice as well. So this is from February 25th to March 2nd. So our ridge that was out in the western U.S., it's further out in the Pacific. Colder air starts to move in the western U.S. And then you also got this ridge here in the southeast. And this is a classic setup for severe weather setups. That's something else we need to keep an eye on, is that we could see severe weather setups return. And unfortunately, it could happen in some of the same areas, which we'll check out the precipitation anomalies in just a moment. But you do see here, going through the rest of the run of the Gfs Ensembles, it's pretty much the same pattern overall. Here's the CFS model, and pretty much very similar. Over the next several days, it's going to be a colder pattern for the eastern U.S. But we start to notice here our ridge starts to begin to move off to the west, and our PNAs begins to flip. In which, in this case here, in late February, from the CFS model, you got a lot of troughing in the western U.S. That's a negative PNA. Then we got a lot of ridging going on in the eastern U.S., and you got this big ridge that's moved off to the west here. At the same time, we still have that negative PDO out there as well. And negative PDOs can help keep the cold air further up to the northwest. And since with the negative PNA begins to flip, we get to see a big pattern change as well. You also do notice here our positive NAO is pretty strong as well. So that's going to keep the cold air further north. And also, our AOS is also on the positive side as well. So really, all these teleconnections are screaming for a warm east and a colder west type of pattern for late February. And let's talk about precipitation. And you notice here, it's over some of the same areas that got hit pretty good back in December. Maybe not for the Midwest event, but that December 10th through 11th event. It goes over some of the same areas, the Tennessee Valley, the Lower Hollow Valley, and for parts of the Mississippi River Valley as well. So this is a pattern that could lead to some more severe weather setups. And this is also an indication that severe weather season and spring season could start a little bit earlier this year as well. And whenever we check out precipitation anomalies from the Gfs Ensembles, you pretty much see a very similar thing here. Above normal anomalies for parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and even for parts of Mississippi River Valley as well, from late February into March as well. And then again, this is an indication that we could see severe weather in some of the same areas that got hit pretty good last year. Well, last December as well. And I guess we could check out Mslp anomalies, and you could see here you got some ridging just off the east coast there, so that leads to a good moisture supply from the Gulf of Mexico. And you also got lower pressure anomalies a little bit further back off to the west as well. So then again, this is a pretty favorable pattern for severe weather setups as well. This is also not a bad pattern for areas and parts of the Midwest and even for parts of Central Plains. And parts of the Central Plains haven't really seen much snow this winter, so this might be their opportunity to see that snow action as well. And GFS, it does have this as well, and doesn't have a very strong agreement with that as well. But you kind of get the idea of this upcoming setup as well. Let's check out a little bit deeper to the teleconnections. This is from the Gfs Ensembles. This is for the AO, and you do notice here it's saying pretty well into the positive side. And like I said earlier, with a positive AO, it keeps that cold air a little bit further north. Or in other words, the polar vortex is stronger, so it's able to contain the colder air a little bit better for up north. And at the same time, warmer air can certainly take over a decent chunk of the eastern U.S. at that time period as well. NEO likely staying on the positive side, which it has been for a while now, and it does seem like that's likely could continue into late February. And here's what's really going to be the game changer with this pattern change is the P&A. You do notice that some of those members, those red lines, do trend towards a little bit into the negative side, which we've seen, which it goes further out when we look into the GFS Ensembles a little bit ago. But this is a little bit of a different view. That's something I should have noted a little bit earlier. But either way, you do see that indication that we may go towards on the negative side getting into late February. Here's something that's known as the Madden-Julian Oscillation, or the MJO. This can also change the pattern as well. And you do notice here we're expected to go into periods 2 and 3, or phase 2 or 3, I should say. If we look at it, what they look like, phase 2, it's generally colder for most of the U.S., but it's not going to look exactly what the picture shows, because with that positive P&A, it's likely going to be warmer in the western U.S. at this time period. But you do notice here it's not very strong with the cold in the eastern U.S., and that's what we're going to experience here over the next several days or so into mid-February. Phase 3 is pretty much the same thing as well. But you do notice here the members, as we get deeper into mid to late February time frame, they do trend towards phase 4 and eventually into 5 for a couple members. If we check out what phase 4 and 5 look like, hey, things trend warmer in the eastern U.S. as well. So this is a pretty good signal that we are going to see a pattern change. So really confidence for a pattern change for late February is increasing. But then again, some changes could occur in late February since we are still far out. But this has been a signal for a while now. And honestly, it would not be surprised with this pattern change that we're going to see a lot of warmth for the eastern U.S. As well. So for anybody that lives in the southeast here, a little bit earlier on, this could be your last shot of seeing colder air. Of course, you got March, but even looking into March with some of the weather model guidance you've seen from the Gfs Ensembles, it's likely to be staying a similar way as well. But that could change as well. But either way, it seems like the potential is high that we could certainly see a pattern change in late February. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.